Hi, I'm your host Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really glad and privileged to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today, all the way from Montreal in Canada, Ana Patricia Bourgeois, who's an intuitive business coach, host of the Powerful Female Leaders podcast, and also a published author. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Ana. It's a real privilege to have you as my guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Now, Rita Rashti, who was our guest on episode 526 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, she introduced us and suggested that we have a conversation. So a big hello to Rita.
Yes. Hi, Rita. She was on my show too. She's awesome.
Yeah, she is, yes. And she's just moved to Mexico a few months back now, but
Yes.
I think she was new there when we spoke. So it was exciting times for her as well.
Yeah.
All right, now you work with women particularly to own their own gifts, own their own power, show up powerfully online, which is something that I'm really looking forward to explore some more, and also to talk about your podcasting journey. As I said, you're host of the Powerful Female Leaders podcast, so I know there's a lot that you've learned going through that podcasting journey, so it'll be interesting to compare notes. Before we do that though, what's the impact you're making in the world, Anna?
Oh my gosh, that's such a big question, but I think the biggest impact is to truly give that clarity and that confidence to my clients, for them to really know that they have gifts and that they can get really well paid for those gifts. And one way to go about that is to show up online, on social media, on podcasts, on interviews. There's so many different ways to go about it. But it's to really give them the tools and the clarity and the confidence to go and do it. Because sometimes we're so afraid, or we have all these doubts and these fears, and it's just this huge barrier. But then it's no, it's possible for me to go and do it and have clients and grow this business and have that freedom that I'm looking for. Because ultimately, that's what I notice is most women, what they're looking for is the time freedom to spend more time with their family, with their kids, and live off their passions. Because life is too short to just work in a 9-to-5 job and not really love what you're doing. So that's really the whole goal for me and what I do and what truly pulls me in this work. And it's so fulfilling. It's so fulfilling to see my clients leave their jobs, go full time in their business, get clients, just have their mind blown. They're wow, I never thought this was possible for me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's so much to unpack there. One of the things that you said early on is that we have these fears, and we think that, I kind of feel sometimes that we take so much for granted that we know. And often I have this experience where I'm working with a client, and we're sitting in front of the computer screen. I'm doing something on the computer, and the client suddenly says, "Oh wow, that was amazing." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And they, "What you just did there was amazing." And it's kind of it's just something that comes natural. It's something that I don't know, I've picked up somewhere, I've learnt somewhere, I've taught myself. But there's so many things like that you take for granted when somebody else sees them and they say that is so amazing, and there's value in that. So why do you think, what's the mindset? There's two parts to this. What's the mindset that we overlook those things, and then also what's the mindset that where we know, hey, I have this skill, but we're afraid to put it out there and share it with people in the way that is available and that they can actually pay us for and reward us for?
Yeah, I think the mindset is truly to notice where you're diminishing yourself, because I feel like we're justifying what we have or what we know. That's nothing. It's just common sense. But what comes to you naturally doesn't come naturally to someone else. And it's challenging for them to see you go and to see you share your expertise and your knowledge. It's wow, it's mind blowing to them. And I love when those moments happen, because I'm always yeah, I do know a lot of stuff. It's like we forget, but we know a lot. So it's truly like really looking at our wordiness. Like we are so wordy. We know so much. And when you have that conviction in yourself, when you believe in yourself so much, and when you expect that your gifts are life-changing and that people will be like mind blown by them, then that's what's going to happen, right? So it's always revisiting that. It's always like looking at those beliefs or what comes up for you when that happens. So yeah, it's a big, big thing.
Yeah. And you talked also about fear that, I mean, in your case, women have a fear of putting themselves out there, but I think it's not just women. I know from my own personal experience, I occasionally, well, often have a fear. I think, oh God, what will people think if I put this out there? And it's always like I have to keep reminding myself that other people don't spend a lot of time thinking about what they think of me. It's just me that thinks that everybody else is going to be stressing out about, oh, what's he done there? So, yeah, how do you work with people to kind of break down that fear of putting something out there?
So I think the first thing is to realize, like you said, that we are our biggest critics. Like we dissect, we see the little things. But to be honest, people truly just care about the value and like, what can you share with them? Like what's in it for them? What are they going to learn from this? They don't care if your makeup looks great or whatever it is. Like they just care about what you're sharing, the message, the quality of the message that you're sharing. And it's also about like knowing that, you know, we're not meant to work with everyone or to please everyone. Like we're here to share our message, share our gifts, and the right people will resonate with that. And they're going to be like, yes, she is the coach for me, or he is the coach for me. Like we don't want to like just talk to everyone and like blend with everyone. We want to stand out, right? So yeah, it's truly believing that the right people will resonate and they will appreciate what you have to say, and it's going to be life-changing for them.
Yeah, that's a really important point, and I think most of us have, or certainly I have, and I know a lot of my clients have started out in business, and anybody that's got a beating heart and is breathing is a potential client, because we want to get some momentum happening, right? We want to get some revenue coming in, and we need to support whatever lifestyle we have. But at some point, I think it is really important, and probably very early on really important, to have that focus and say, well, these are the people that I can help. These are the people that are going to gel with me. These are the people that I can build a relationship with, right?
Yes, and it's going to be 10 times much more easier to actually sell your offers, because people are looking for specialists, not generalists, right? It's like, why should I go with you? Why should I hire you? Like, what makes you different? Like people, when they go to the doctor, like they go to a specialist in the problem or their issues they're having, right? So it's the same thing. So as soon as you can really pinpoint what your specialty is, what exactly you help people with, and who you help, the better.
All right. Now, speaking of specialty, you describe yourself as an intuitive coach, and I was intrigued by that description. So tell us a little bit more. What do you mean by that, and how does that play out in the work you do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think everything I do truly comes from my intuition, my gut. And it's the same thing when I coach someone. Is I listen to their answers and what they're telling me, and then I'm able to read in between the lines of what's not being said. And I'm really good at pinpointing the things that still needs work, or where we can pivot or shift or make things really better. So my clients truly appreciate that sixth sense that I have, and that I'm able to use it in my coaching.
Yeah. Did you always have that kind of intuition or sixth sense?
Yeah, like when I was little, I remember I could hear spirits, I could see spirits. I was like a very spiritual child. But then as I was growing up and adult responsibilities piling up in school and this and that, I kind of like lost touch with it. But then when I found coaching, I kind of had like no other choice but to listen to that gut in making business decisions and creating offers or showing up. Like it's all based out of alignment and intuition. And when it's that way, I feel like things flow 10 times much better. And it's more fulfilling as well.
Interesting. That's that's a great gift to have, and it's interesting that you kind of rediscovered it when you started doing coaching work, training in coaching.
Yeah. There's a really great spiritual community, I think, also in coaching. And when I found that, I was like, yeah, these are my people, like we all have that connection to source and that intuitivity and all of that. It's just really fun to dive deeper into that and not be afraid to own that and own your gifts with this. So I'm doing the work at the same time that my clients are doing theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you mentioned something there, owning the gifts, and that was on my mind as you were explaining your gift of the intuition and being able to use that to recognize where people are stuck and what people's strengths perhaps are. How do you go about working with someone else so let's say a woman comes to you and says, well, I want more time. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to leave my job, but I need this sort of income to support the lifestyle I want. And how do you work with them to then identify what options they have to leave their current job and do something different that gives them more time and more freedom?
There's so many ways to go about this. I think it really depends on their situation and what their goals are. But some clients will tell me, Anna, I'm committed to this. I'm going to focus on this for the next 3 months. My goal is to get maybe 2 $5,000 clients per month, or like we look at what their goals are basically. And then we create a strategy, a structure to get there together. And sometimes it happens sooner, like in less than 90 days. Like they get those clients and they feel like they're confident enough to repeat the same system month after month to create that recurring income and then leave their jobs. And some people, like, they prefer to still keep their job and do this on the side. Like there's no wrong or right way to do it, but like you just gotta do what's best for you and what's not truly gonna destabilize your nervous system, and just have fun with it. Because that's the other part of this is, yes, we need to have a structure, but we also gotta have fun and we also gotta love what we do. So if adding that pressure of leaving your job is too much, then don't do that, right? I'm telling you, like, I've seen it happen in so many different ways. Like I said, there's no right or wrong way. It's all about trial and error and see what works for you.
Yeah. And there's a couple of things you said there that are really important to explore some more, I think. And I'm stuck on fun now. I've sort of got to go back to what you said earlier, but having fun is really important. Yeah, the thing I wanted to explore some more, and that struck me as you were explaining that, is you're the intuitive business coach. You're kind of going by what's coming from inside of you, what you're feeling, what you're sensing from people's situation and where they might be stuck and what their issues might be. And yet, on the other hand, you're talking about structure and systems and processes. So, yeah, tell us about that. Almost seems like a dichotomy.
Yes. So what you're talking about is the feminine and masculine energies, right? And here's what happened. I was so much in my masculine, like all my life. Like I was the type A student. I had all the notebooks, all the thing organized. I had the jobs. Like I was always going, doing. And the same thing happened when I started this business. Like I was glued to my computer, like almost all day, every day, like working on stuff, working on content, creating offers. And the thing that happened is, yes, I had like massive success. I had like my first 10K month, but then I got burned out because it was just too much, right? Because when you do, and you don't take enough time to be and enjoy the process and enjoy your life and be in the present moment and have fun with what you're doing, that's what happens. Like you burned out and it's not fun. I don't wish that on anyone. So that's why I also bring that feminine lean back energy of like, okay, you've done enough today. Now you can go enjoy your life. You know, like it's like this beautiful, beautiful balance. You got to have both. If you're too much in your masculine doing structure, systems, and all of that is great, but you got to have that balance with living and being. And I think that's the hardest thing I've ever have to do in my business ever is finding that balance. But it's possible. It's totally possible.
Yeah. I love it. My business coach talks about the be, do, have model, and her philosophy is, well, define your goal. What is it that you want to have? And you work backwards from there. So to get to that goal, here are the things you need to do. And in order to do those things, this is how you have to be. And she also talks about, you know, a lot of us get stuck in this idea of doing. We're human beings, not human doings. So it's very consistent with what you just described.
Yes. And I learned it the hard way, and you don't have to learn it the hard way.
Yeah. So did you experience burnout in your early kind of business?
I did. Yeah. Like I was working so hard. Like it took me about 6 months to get my first premium client. And then when I had that, it was like the evidence. I was like, oh my gosh, if I can do it once, I can do it twice. I can do it like multiple times. So I just went for it. I hired another coach, another program, another this, another that. I was like in so many different places doing all the things. I ran a promo and I had like 6 new one-on-one clients, my first 10K month. It was awesome. But then I was like, oh shoot, I got to coach those 6 people while showing up, while growing my brand, while getting on interviews, while doing this, while doing that. So it was so much all at once that my nervous system was like, girl, you need to chill. Like you need to take a break. And yeah, it wasn't fun. I was like, wow, I really did that to myself without realizing it. And I think that's the downside of being so driven and so ambitious. Like we are, like as entrepreneurs, like most of us are really driven. Like we want to accomplish, we want to reach the Mount Everest, but then we didn't even take the time to take a sip of water, to rest, journey. You know?
Enjoy the journey.
To enjoy the view. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's a really important point, and I think there's a risk every one of us as entrepreneurs faces there that we very easily tip over to that situation. And like you say, when the body kind of says something like all of a sudden disease or illness crops up, then that's a big danger sign. So it's good to recognize those signs beforehand. So how do you kind of coach your clients to help them recognize where that balance is and that they don't go over the wrong side of that line to get to that point where the body says, okay, I'm going to pull a pin here. I'm going to shut something down so that you pay attention.
Yes. I think it's really looking at, what are your action steps? Like, what are you working on today? What are you doing? And then it's also blocking time off for that me time, right? So it's like making yourself a priority. Like I love to do it in the morning, like when I wake up, like it's my time. Like I take the time to enjoy my breakfast, have my coffee. I'm going to read a little, meditate, go for a walk. Like I pour into myself first before pouring into the business, into the clients, and doing all the things. So it's really looking at what type of routine or what can you do every single day, even if it's just 10 or 20 minutes, that's just for you, not for the kids, not for the family, not for the business, like just for you. So I think if we implement this really early on, it's going to become like a habit of taking care of ourselves first.
Yeah, that's a really important point. And I keep thinking back to the safety briefing in an aircraft where they tell you, you know, if the oxygen masks drop from the ceiling, then put on your oxygen mask first before you help others. And that's so important, isn't it? Because if we pass out through lack of oxygen, we're no help to anyone else anyway.
No.
And
Exactly.
I think that metaphor is really good to keep in mind in business as well. And the other thing that, from what you've said there, I mean, I know I often go for a walk or go for a bike ride in the middle of the day when I get to the point of really stuck. And I just keep, the moment I think, well, this didn't work and I'm going to try it again. And I think, well, why would the same thing work the second time around when it didn't work the first time around? And I don't have any other options. That's when I say, okay, take a break, go and do something different. And the paradox, that the counterintuitive thing about that is when I come back, usually either I've had an idea during that time out that, oh, that's the answer, that's how to do it. Or even if I don't have that, I'm refreshed and I can actually tackle it differently. So you become much more productive afterwards, don't you?
I feel like it's like really quieting that mind, because the mind is always thinking, always solving problems. And when you can quiet down the traffic in your mind, that's when the downloads come in. That's when, I haven't thought about this. I haven't thought about that. So, for example, if you go on a walk, but you're listening to a podcast at the same time, you're not giving your mind the space it needs, you know? It's like, really be aware of everything you do and be aware of like what's going on up here. And how can you drop here? How can you drop from your mind into your heart and truly listen what is coming up for you? I'm telling you, it's easier said than done, but it's a practice. It's like a muscle. You go to the gym, you do the reps. It's the same thing.
That's right.
Yeah, it's being aware.
Becomes
it's
easier.
being aware.
Love the metaphor. Yeah. And the other thing, I think you sort of hinted at it there, but that's really important, is to do something that you really enjoy and you love doing, because that kind of brings you into that space and tends to quieten down a lot of the other noise. I know for me, I often go out with my camera to take photos, and that requires a lot of concentration in that. So I'm sort of in my mind, but it's also something I so love doing, and because it's such an intense concentration that I go into when I'm sort of looking at scenes, how do I compose that scene? It kind of shuts out all the other noise. So I think it's important to pick something that you really enjoy.
I love that. Yeah, like, what are your hobbies? What do you love to do? What can you escape in for a few hours and not even realize that time has flown by?
That's right, yeah.
Those are the things that we have to immerse ourselves in more often. It can be something as silly as like doing a puzzle. Like, I love doing puzzles, and I just get lost in the puzzle pieces and like, oh, okay, this goes here, this goes there. So what is it? Like, what is your thing that can help you quiet the mind and just be in the moment?
Yeah, and that's so refreshing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
All right, well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your podcast. So I'm sort of fascinated by your podcasting journey. I mean, you started a podcast very early on in your business. What prompted you to start the podcast?
Oh my gosh, I love that question. So when I was little, I always knew I wanted to work in the world of media, television or radio or entertainment. Like, I love dancing. I love to put on a show for family, friends, and I had this vision for myself. But then as I grew up and went to university and I did an internship at a media corporation, and I was like, whoa, like this is a lot. And I just kind of forgot about it, and I went into entrepreneurship. And when I discovered coaching and I noticed people had podcasts, I was like, wait a minute.
Like that, this all comes, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly like what I was meant to do. Like, I knew I wanted to, like, it's even better because it's my own show.
Yeah.
So
you're the producer, you're the director.
Yeah. So it was like the perfect opportunity. And it actually took me a while before I got certified in coaching in 2019. I started in like early 2020, and I only started the podcast at the end of 2020, at November. Yeah, in November. And I think the biggest thing that held me back from starting it was like, how do you even start? Like, where do you even go? Like, there's so many different platforms, hosting sites. Yeah. There's so many things, and it was really overwhelming. But I really said, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I taught myself. Like, I went on YouTube. I read countless articles. Like, I did all my homework, and I finally launched it. And it truly blew my mind how, it brought me clients. It brought me referrals. It brought me collaborations. And it brought me that connection that I was looking for, especially in 2020 with the pandemic.
That's right,
being able to connect with other people, to learn about their stories, to create those relationships. It was so meaningful, and it's still so meaningful. And it's also like them sharing their episodes on their websites. Like, the podcast has been featured in so many different websites and publications. To be honest, like, it completely changed my life, like from A to Z. Like, it's like night and day. And when I saw that, I was like, I know there are other entrepreneurs out there that wants to start their own podcast. So let me create a mini course. So I created a mini course for that. And I teach people how to start so they don't have to go through everything I went through. I give them all the steps. So it also brought me more income, like another source of income. I have affiliate income. Like, it's just been crazy, to be honest. It completely blew my mind, and I love it so much. And now we have crossed 7,000 downloads on the show. And I keep getting messages every day. Women wants to be interviewed, wants to be part of the show. Yeah. It's just like this beautiful organic thing. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And you touched on so many benefits there. I mean, obviously, monetizing the podcast is on people's minds when they think about going into podcasting. And I say, well, don't worry about the monetization at the beginning. Think of it as an opportunity to get your voice out there, to get visibility, to connect with the right audience, first of all. Secondly, what you mentioned, building that network and building those relationships that leads to that's to me the big one that is an immediate benefit, because it leads to opportunities to work with people on joint ventures, on partnerships, on referral exchanges, and it has generated business for me. And then sort of the natural progression is that people listen to the podcast and say, I like what you do. Can I work with you, or can you work with me? Can you help me with this particular situation? I think you can help. So that comes almost naturally if you do everything right.
Yeah, it does. It truly does. But the thing is, I don't want you to go into podcasting with the goal in mind that you're going to become famous or rich overnight. Like, this is not an overnight thing. You know, it's a lot of like putting in the work and being consistent and building that listenership. And it's, you know, it's like business. You don't go into business because you want to get rich quickly. It's like you do this because of the impact. I always go back to the impact. Like if even one person listens to one episode and it changes their life, it's going to be worth it. You know, that's why I do everything that I do, you know, so just go on it and don't focus so much on the number of downloads or the vanity metrics or how many people are listening, and just go in it and just share your heart out. Just share your story. Get incredible guests on there and have fun with it, you know, and it's all going to come naturally, organically. All the opportunities, all the money, the clients, the referrals, it's all going to come to you because you're doing great things in the world, you know, so it's good karma. The good karma is coming back.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. And I love what you said there in terms of making an impact. I think that's really a big thing. What do you think? Oh, the other thing, consistency. That's the big message there. I was going to ask, what do you think those lessons from podcasting, how do they apply across the board in business in general? So not everybody is suited to podcasting. Podcasting may not be for everyone. It may not be the appropriate medium, but certainly one of your strong beliefs is that people have gifts and they should be showing up to share those gifts, and that's a way they can monetize that. What are the lessons from podcasting that you've learned that are applicable across the board in business?
I think podcasting is a medium, right? So I'm the queen of repurposing. So if I record a podcast episode, I'm going to take that clip and create videos with it and create posts with it and post it everywhere else, right? So it's like if you're already creating content in some type of way, whether that's a blog, social media, like whatever it is, you have that opportunity to repurpose that into a video, into a podcast episode, into so many different formats, because people don't consume content the same way. Some prefer to listen, some prefer to read, some prefer to watch. So don't leave opportunities on the table. And that's what podcasting showed me, is that it's so easy to take one piece of content, take one episode and repurpose it. And I feel like a lot of people, they're like, oh no, it's going to take a long time. But in the mini course, I show people how to repurpose, and it's really, really easy. Yeah. And it's so worth it.
Absolutely. And I think the idea of repurposing, that applies across the board in business. So anything you produce by way of content, that's work, that's effort you've put into it to produce that. To then take that and convert it into a whole lot of different formats is much, much, much less work. And as you say, a lot of people, different people consume information in different ways. Some people like to watch videos. Some people like to listen to the audio version. Some people prefer to read it on paper. Some people prefer to read on the screen. So to have those different forms of the same content is already catering to a much bigger audience.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I mean by showing up powerfully online. It's by 10xing your visibility, and truly being where it matters. Like where are your people hanging out, you know? And yeah, it's honestly, it changed my life. Podcasting changed my life. So if it's been on your heart to just start, do it. Like start today.
Do it. Excellent. Yeah. Come and talk to some of us that are in the game.
Yeah.
We can give you some tips. Excellent. All right. Well, this is fabulous, Anna. I think it's a good point now on that high note about podcasting to move on to the buzz, which is the innovation round, the same 5 questions I ask of every guest. And the idea is that you'll give us some really insightful answers and tips that will inspire the listener to go and do something awesome today. So you have an impact. Right? Yeah. What's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
I think connecting to your own creativity. And like we talked about, it's all about quieting the mind, quieting that ego, reconnecting with your soul, reconnecting with spirit. And I always encourage my clients to, like I said, drop from the head into the heart and truly enjoying the process of creating something new. Because sometimes we put so much pressure to create something that will perform, but when we enjoy what we're creating and when we have embodied what we're creating, it's 10 times much more impactful. So yeah, creativity, embodiment, and really listening to that intuition.
Yeah, love it. And that exercise of quieting the mind to really do that in whatever form that works for you and is fun, I think is really important.
Yes.
Love it. All right. Well, what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
I think the biggest thing is getting feedback and going straight to the source, asking powerful questions. And I think the best ideas are always the ones that really solve a need and solve a problem. So it's really important to know exactly what those problems are, what those needs are. And instead of just assuming what people need, it's 10 times much more easier to go talk to people and ask them directly.
Yeah. Why do you think it is that we don't do that? That's sort of like, duh, that's makes a lot of sense. Why is it that we're so hesitant to do that?
Yeah, like a lot of people are afraid to ask questions. And I feel like it's this whole stigma that we don't want to be seen as, you know, salesy or icky but to be honest, like people love it. People love to be asked questions. People love to talk about themselves, you know, so don't be afraid. Like I challenge you today to go ask someone something that is going to help you create a new idea, a new offer in your business. And you're going to be surprised by the information you're getting. Like you would never have thought that that's what's happening in their mind. So yeah, it's a really powerful practice.
Yeah, it's important to ask. And I something happened to me the other day where it was just a trivial little thing. And I thought, oh, if I had just asked that person, that would have saved them the embarrassment of not knowing what to do in the situation they were in. Whereas I just assumed, well, they know what to do. But I could have asked a question in a way that, you know, is there anything you want to know about this role that you're about to take on? And it would have given them permission to say, oh, actually, I'm not quite sure what to do. And that would have solved their dilemma. And yet I just thought, okay, they know what to do. But it turns out they didn't.
Yeah.
All right. What's a favourite resource you use most often?
I think a calendar system. Honestly, if it's not in your calendar, if your calendar is all over the place, it's not going to get done. And this really goes with boundaries, like having strong boundaries. I always say, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And, you know, it's really like letting go, like I said, of that people pleasing. And if it's not in your best interest, if it's not helping you move forward, if truly deep down you don't want to go to that event or whatever it is, you can say no. I'm giving you the permission slip to say no.
I love it. Yeah. So you said calendar. Do you use your calendar to put in everything you do?
Yes.
Project work or client work? Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, I do have...
and the time.
Oh, sorry.
And your quiet time.
Yeah, and the quiet time. Yeah, I do have a Calendly system linked to my calendar, and I also have a paper calendar because I love to write. I don't know if you're like me, but I love writing. So it's also like I have both. And
I'll show you my collection of coloured safari, Lamy safari fountain pens that I love to write with. I don't have a paper calendar though, but I do write notes with the different colours all the time.
I love that. This is awesome. Yeah.
All right. So what's the best way to keep a client on track?
That's an interesting question because I don't keep my clients on track per se because they are powerful leaders. They know they're responsible for their own results. They're self-led. They take action because they know that's how they're going to get the results they're looking for. I do check in with them and be like, hey, what's going on? What's that? But like, I'm not going to be like, oh, by Friday, you need to send this thing, you know. They are self-led, you know. And I also don't like to put like rigid timelines or deadlines on my projects either. I feel like this really creates a lot of resistance and pressure to deliver. So I really just focus on taking small, actionable steps every single day because I understand the power of compounding our efforts over time and really doing those steps in alignment, right, with my goals, where I'm going, and listening to my body. So I don't I used to put so much pressure on myself, but that just didn't work for me. So yeah, I found this new way of doing things and it really paid off.
Yeah. I love the idea of the compounding and taking the next small step, because as you say, that there's very little barrier to, if you can identify what's just a little thing I can do now in the next 5 minutes, it'll only take me 2 minutes of that 5 minutes to move this particular thing forward. And if you build that into a habit, and this is the whole philosophy in James Clear's Atomic Habits book, right? That if you build those things into a habit, it compounds. And so that compounding is dramatic.
Exactly. It makes, honestly, like, I was just mind blown. I was like, wow, I got all of that done this week. Wow.
All right. And you've probably got a very strong opinion on this one. What's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Yes, I do. I think it starts with the belief, like believing that you are different and owning the fact that you are unique and that your gifts are amazing. Because some people, they don't even know, like they're not even aware of what makes them different. They don't even think they're good enough at anything. They don't even think they have talents worth enough to pursue. And other people do know that they have talents, but then they're too afraid to stand out. They're too afraid to be bold and show up and take space and be visible. So if you truly want to be different, if you truly want to succeed and excel and create freedom and abundance for yourself, it's all about looking at your standards, your expectations, your convictions, your beliefs, how confident you are, your wordiness. Like there's so many things, and it's all about the inner work. The inner work, it's knowing and believing, because that inner work, like that inner world, reflects in our outer world, right? So we must unlearn all the old conditioning that are blocking us and relearn and recondition our minds with high value convictions and being like, hell yeah, I can do that. I'm amazing. Let's do this. I'm going to show up live today. I'm going to go on podcast interview today. It's going to be awesome. It's having that positive mindset, you know, and that's going to differentiate you from everyone else, because it's more about who you're being while you're doing it than just doing it.
Right. I love it. And it's such a consistent message right throughout the conversation today. So thanks for that. And great. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Ana. This has been fabulous. Where can people find out more about you, about the work you do, listen into your podcast, and maybe even reach out and say thanks for what you've shared today?
Yeah, for sure. So you can check out the podcast. Obviously, the Powerful Female Leaders podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the major distributors of podcasts. You can also reach out to me on Instagram at anapatricia.coach. Send me a message. Let's chat. I would love to get to know you. And you can also join my free Facebook group community. It's called the Powerful Female Coaches and Leaders Community. I go live in there every week. I share amazing value. You can network and meet other women. And yeah, these are the best way to get in touch.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll include those links in the show notes so people can click straight through. So is there some action you'd like our listener to take out of today's conversation?
Start today, okay? The thing you're afraid to say, the message you have on your heart, the offer you want to put out there, go for it. Like, life is too short, and you'd be surprised by how amazing everything will turn out to be because you believe and you have conviction that it's going to be awesome. That's
right. And I think that's really important to bring those two things together. And if you can't do that yourself, get a business coach. I can certainly say from my experience, that's something that there's certainly a lot of things that I couldn't have done without that assistance.
Yes, absolutely. I've always had support, and it's made a huge difference in everything, for sure.
So, yeah, work on that belief and conviction. Yeah. Excellent. Well, finally, Ana, who else should I bring on the show and why?
Oh, my gosh. I know so many people. It's hard to choose one person.
Well, I'm happy to take lots of recommendations.
I'll definitely give them to you.
Excellent. All right. We'll follow up outside. Off air on that one afterwards.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much, Ana, for the conversation today, for sharing your time and your insights. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Your passion and your energy are certainly very clear to hear and to see, and I'm sure the listeners will enjoy that, as well as take away a lot of gold nuggets from our conversation today. So thanks a lot. All the best for the future, and please do stay in touch.
Yes, thank you so much again for having me. It's been a pleasure being here, and yeah, let's do it. Let's continue on this amazing spirit of collaboration.